me. Because I coach, these guys are wonderful players. I haven't been around a group of guys like these guys. Honest to God, I've been coaching professional football for 32 years, okay? And I haven't been with a group of guys that are as good, they're probably better people than they are players, okay? And we have on the stage, right, we have J.C. Tretter from the Cornell University, okay? J.C. plays center for the Browns. Joe Bitonio from Nevada, he's all pro left guard, okay? And Austin Corbett, okay, he's going to be the right guard next season, okay, from Nevada. They both played at Nevada. Austin was the 33rd pick in the draft. He almost made it to the first round. If they would have listened to me, Corbett, you would have been a first-round draft pick. Anyway, they're going to, and don't be afraid to ask these guys questions, okay? Because these guys make it work. They get the call from the quarterback, right? And once they get that call, by the time the ball's snapped, there's a lot of information that exchanges hands, okay, by the time that ball is snapped. Because a lot of times you guys come to camp and you get next to the drills, but you can't hear what we're telling them, and you can't hear the questions they ask us, okay? So these guys are going to go through it for you, right? And if you've got questions, okay, don't be afraid to raise your hand and talk to them. They don't bite, okay?
Thanks, Coach. Mic check. We good? We good? Can you guys hear us?
All right, so I'm going to start and just kind of go through the concepts, the coaching points of the overall inside zone. Joel's then going to take it over and go through the double teams, one-on-one blocks, and kind of how we see it working. So first off, our aiming point, we treat it as the play side number. The back's aiming point we see is the play side inside leg of the tackle. So we want to get that little stretch on the defensive line as well as influence the linebackers to play with us. We're going to see this play probably hit backside 9 out of 10 times. More often than not, it's going to roll backside. So we need to move the defensive line and we need to move the linebackers with us in order to set up that cutback lane. As in any zone concept, we can't have any penetration. If we allow penetration on the front side, the back's not going to be able to influence those linebackers. He's going to end up cutting back into a wall. So the tackle, guard, center on the front side need to wash their guys down. And then the most important part is the backside double team. You can't get broken up in between. They can't penetrate between the B block. The next 2 points kind of go together here. We want to handle the defensive line movement, but we don't want to become reliant on 3-man, 4-man, 5-man zone calls. As offensive linemen, when we hear kind of a 3-man zone call, we kind of pitter-patter our feet and get caught up in reading what the defense is doing, and not as much in firing off and getting that big push on the double team. So obviously sometimes you're not going to be able to rely on just a 2-man call. You could play a team that's a heavy movement team. You're calling an inside zone on 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, and you know they're going to run twists and games. You have to be ready for that stuff, but you don't want to become too reliant on the 3-man calls where you're not going to get any push on the backside B or the backside A block that Joel's going to cover. The next part, the furthest double team from the point of the attack is the most critical block. That's what we're talking about, the A block and the B block. That needs to get movement either horizontal or vertical in order to separate and give that back, that rollback, cutback lane. So, like I said, we think this is going to roll backside more often than not, but these are just kind of the ways that it's going to hit front side. So, first box here, you get line movement, you get an end ramming. The tackle's going to get his aiming point. They're going to get him, pin him inside. Back should take this front side. Box 2 here, we just got leverage on the ID. So the guard and center working together, going to create a crease right there. Tackle keeps his end outside, MDM by the receiver. Back's again going to have that crease front side. Then on box 3 here, this is just showing, sometimes you're just going to get bad linebacker play. The linebacker's going to shoot backside, they're going to read the play wrong. Sometimes you're going to get that front side run there, but again, more often than not, it's going to end up rolling backside behind that critical block of the double team. Again, this is going to show, this is really the stress block, and this is something we kind of know. The tight ends are kind of put in a mismatch in these zone blocking schemes on the backside. They're against the defensive lineman who's bigger, more explosive, and they've got to hold their point right here. Whatever movement you can get on this double team, whether vertical or horizontal, preferably both, if this guy can hold his own, not get beat inside or washed down into the hole, that's going to be your running lane backside. So you need to find a way to get that block to be separate. So right here, you get that movement. If this guy can just hold his own, and he's going to roll behind that backside double team. So again, create vertical and horizontal separation. Right here is just showing the different ways in which to get that separation between that defensive end and the backside double team. So if you don't have a tight end that can create that one-on-one block and hold his own, we've got ways, whether it's just putting a guy in offset and coming and chopping down that defensive end to get that ball to roll backside. This is a scheme we've always liked, having kind of a seal blocker, whether that's the fullback or the Y, coming back across, chopping down, putting that defensive end in kind of the making a business decision moment where he wants to get after the passer, he wants to rush the quarterback. When you've got a guy coming across the formation, chopping down at his legs, he wants to kind of pull off there, and that's where you're going to get that separation. The other thing to know with this type of scheme is the way the backers are going to play. So when the Y comes back across the formation, the backers are going to be a little hesitant, and they're going to kind of stay backside a little more often than not. So again, like we talked about, when the backers play backside, you have a better chance of hitting that front side because they're playing behind. But also coming off the double teams going up to your linebackers, that's something as offensive linemen we need to know. They're not going to be in the normal position that you usually see in the inside zone. They're going to be a little bit backside, and if that's where we think the ball is going to roll more often than not, you need to take your aiming point a little differently than you usually will. You got to get more vertical right away in order to capture your aiming point. So that's really concept-wise. Now Joel's going to go through the double teams and one-on-one blocks.
All right, so JC kind of gave you guys an overview of the scheme, and we're just going basic in scheme. I think everybody here knows the inside zone scheme like that, but now we're just going to talk about how we try and get the job done on double teams and individual blocks. So we're talking about the tight reach, and this is on the front side of inside zone. So if you have a 3 technique, you're playing left guard, a 5 technique, you're playing left tackle, or even a shade when you're playing center. This is the block you're talking about. And in a perfect world, you tell your guys, oh, get 6 yards of movement and drive this guy off the ball, but when you're blocking Aaron Donald, that doesn't usually happen. So we want to reach the guys, but we want to reach the guys with our technique and our hat placement. You see a lot of guys when you tell them, oh, reach the 3 technique, they take a giant first step and try and get reached, and they get blown back into the ball. It's about your steps and your hat placement working to show that you're reaching a man to make him move for you. It's hard when you just go head-to-head with a guy firing out. If you can use your technique to move him, it's going to help you a lot. So your first step is really determined on the width of the defender. If you have a tight 3, it's going to be a little bit shorter first step. If you have a wider 3, you're going to open up a little bit more and move. But where the power comes from is that second step. How quickly and powerfully can you get your second step in the ground and make contact? When your second step's making contact, your hands are making contact at the same time. And then hat placement. JC touched on this earlier. You want to be on the play side number on inside zone. And that's where they get the feeling of, oh crap, I have the B block, the B gap, and this guard is reaching me. I have to run. So if Corbett would come up here, and I'm playing left guard, here we'll get out of the view. I'm playing left guard, and I take my steps, but my hat placement is in the right spot. He feels like he's getting reached, even though I didn't go crazy and reach him. Even if your steps are tight and it feels like you're inside out, if your hat placement's in the right spot, he's going to try and widen with us, and that's creating movement. The whole key is to take good enough steps to don't give up penetration. Hat placement is really key. And then your hands. The movement on these blocks, as Coach Wiley always says, comes when the ball is going past you. So you might be a stalemate, you might have moved them a little bit wider. The ball is running behind you. The defensive player tries to disengage. That's when you run your feet and finish. And it really starts with how good your backside hand is. Can you hold onto that guy, obviously without getting called for holding, but how long can you hold onto that guy and move him once the ball is going? So Corbett, I'm going to show a few little steps here depending on how wide or how tight he is as a defender. So if I'm playing left guard and I have a 3 technique, I'm going to go over here. And he's pretty tight to start. It's a little step. You can lose a little bit of ground, but you're a little open step here. So that's showing him that. In your second step, is going to the defender's backside foot. That's where I'm aiming for here. If he plays inside, sure, you can shut it off that way, but this is one-on-one, you're by yourself, step, step, the hat placement and the second step all want to take place at the same time. So boom, 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 you're here, and it's the basic. He's going to feel like he's getting reached, and that's when you can start going. Obviously, there's going to be movement, and sometimes you'll hit front side, but a lot of times, like JC said, at least in the NFL, these plays hit backdoor all the time. You don't want to tell the running back that, but that's really where it ends up happening. And so if he gets a little bit wider, I'm going to open up a little bit more. You don't want to turn too much, but I'm here as a left guard. I'm here, second step through the ground, and I'm still in the right proper alignment. This isn't accounting for line movements and things like that, but if you can get to that spot, defenders are taught, I cannot get reached here, and that's when the movement starts. You can run your defender off, and that's how you create that wall on the front side. You want to give the running back your numbers. If you can give him your numbers, all guys up front, there's no penetration, there's a chance for it to be a big play if the double teams do their job. I got a few little clips here of some practice drills that we used to work on with Coach Wiley. It's really basic. It's kind of fundamental stuff. All right. So we kind of started this on a daily basis. It was first step, second step, third step, kind of what everybody does in the world. Even the NFL guys do this. You take, I'll even show it to you here. Kind of ignore the left tackle. He's a young rookie. He wasn't quite sure what we were doing yet. But if you look on some of the inside guys, the center, right guard, right tackle, they all have it down a little bit better, but I mean, it's just basic. You're just taking first step. You line up the bag, you're taking your first step. I mean, it's simple stuff. Then you go 2 steps. 1, 2, hands. Tight hands, 1, 2.
100,000 times.
Yes, this is actually 3. I might have gone too far, but so you do 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I mean, it's just repetitive. In OTAs, you can't hit anybody. You can go against the bag. I mean, we did this every day, 10 minutes. Now this drill, we did a lot too. We're under the chutes, and this Kevin Zeitler, the right guard, heck of a player, he is working like he has a tight 3 technique on this shade. He's going to use his footwork, low pad level on the chute. It's just things like when anybody's good at something in life, they're repetitive. We do it all the time till you're bored of it, but these are the little things that make you a better football player. Second step in the ground. How fast and how powerful can I get my second step in the ground? Joe Thomas, I got to play next to him for 5 years, 4.5 years, and it was one of the coolest things ever was him helping me truly understand how powerful the body can be in certain positions. He's a freak. He does things. And if he came up here and talked, you guys would be like, oh, this is cool, but he's the only guy in the world that can do those things. There's special guys like that, but he did tell me a couple things about, getting that second step in the ground, where the power comes from, finishing blocks, how to be professional, and one of the coolest things was just how important that second step is pretty much on all the blocks. It's going to be real repetitive today, but the second step, making contact as your second steps get in the ground is really important. So Kevin does a good job here. Just more. Every day we go through these chutes. Now we're going left here. All right, now I'm going to start talking about the combination block. So now I'm going to start talking about the combination block. So that was tight reach, your front side. You're keeping the guys from penetration. You're getting late movement. You're stretching them with your hat placement. Now we're on the gap, slip, and scoop. Gap, we're talking center and guard. Slip, we're talking guard and tackle. And scoop, we're talking tackle tight end. And that's just for today. I know you guys have different terminology, but that's what we used last year, and that's what we're going with today. First, I'm going to talk about if the covered lineman, so for example here, the left guard has an inside shade or a head up technique. So in this situation, usually it's going to be a true zone double team. You're not going to have a guy climbing right away unless he moves, but that's usually where. So if you're the covered offensive lineman, you're going to settle step or flat lateral. And another thing I've learned is everybody's bodies works differently. So some guys feel totally comfortable just picking up, putting it down. Other guys are like, no, if I do that, I'm going to go backwards here. Other guys, I can take a 6-inch step. So it's kind of whatever the body feels comfortable. You don't want to box guys in if their bodies can't do certain things. Obviously, there's a certain point where they need to be able to do certain things, but let the guys feel comfortable in what they can do. So you settle step, 6-inch lateral. The second step is vertical through the crotch. And again, that's where all the power comes from. You have inside help. You can be a smidge wider, but that second step, right through the crotch of the defender. That's where you're going to lift the defender with that second step. You're also going to hit, depending on where the linebackers do. I like to use my shoulders a lot. I know some people are like, oh, you get held, you get do that. But that's how I start the movement. When I'm taking my second step, boom, I'm lifting with this shoulder into my hand. I felt like when I was a young player and I was just trying to use my hand, I'd play a little high, and people would, because you're here, oh, I'm using my hand. But if you can come through a guy and use your shoulder to your hand, that's where I felt like the most power was created. And as you can see, we put our inside hand, or you're lifting with your backside pad through that guy's play side number. The second step is on the ground. Eye is on the play side gap. You always have to protect the play side gap. And that linebacker up there is going to determine how quickly I can come off this double team. If you're playing a team that shoots the gaps at all times, you might have to get 2 steps in the ground, make contact, and get off on your linebacker. If he's a slow player, kind of pausing there, you might be able to drive this guy all the way back to the linebacker, but he determines it. You do not want to leave the double teams too early. If you handle the front guys, most of the time you're getting 2-3 yards at least anyway. So handle those guys and get off on the linebacker when he triggers. If you're the uncovered O-lineman, you're going to drop step with your play side foot and lead step on the angle of the block. You do not want to reach here. You're closing the distance. You see a lot of guys, when they step, they open up, they reach with their arms, and it gets them out. You have no power when you're reaching for a guy. You want to get there with your feet and then use your arms and your body to drive the defender. Like I said, the covered lineman is lifting and starting it. The uncovered guy is the guy that gets the movement on these double teams. Because when you have a shade or something, you're usually doing a 2-man double team unless this guy moves. Your backside knee. You drive, that's all the power comes from. You're driving with that backside knee as the uncovered guy. And I'm going to use Corbett here now to show some stuff. I think a huge key that you talk about all the points is when the player that's blocking the linebacker disengages, the other player needs to helmet replace to make sure that he's in the right spot. Because you have this great double team block. I'm going to use JC here too. You have a great double team block, and I get off on the linebacker, and JC's like, oh, I'm blocking this guy. He doesn't adjust his helmet to the play side number. This guy falls off and makes the play for 3 yards. You have 3 yards of movement, you get a 3-yard run. That's not what you're looking for. But if we have a 2-eye here, JC's playing center. 2-eye, please. I'm scooting over. I'm more of a pick it up, maybe a 3-inch lateral step. That's usually what I take. I try and take. So I'm here, and then he's playing kind of into me, and my second step is here through the crotch. And I'm trying to, boom, lift with a base. JC's coming to overtake, and when I come off onto the linebacker, he's helmet adjusting to get there. And the great part about zone blocking is no matter what position you play, unfortunately I had to play left tackle last year in preseason for a little while, but all the blocks are similar. If I went to do a slip block and I was playing tackle, it's the same thing as if I'm playing guard and I'm doing a gap block. So we just got a little example of what's going on here. All right, so we're doing a gap here with a 2-eye technique. Second step, powerful step, shoulder to hand. JC's coming over. This was training camp. We probably could have had a better finish here, but we're working. All right. Now I'm going to talk about double teams when the guy is off the body, so he's not inside shade. So now if I have a true 3 technique, a true 5 technique, and we're starting the double team, it's a little different because 80 or 90% of the time here, you're not going to have a true double team. You're checking and climbing. The only times you have is if the guy plays inside or late movement inside. So now if you're the covered lineman, it's pretty much like you're tight reaching. You're using the same technique. You can be a little bit more aggressive because you know you have help. You're not trying to invite the guy inside, but if he does make an inside move, you can hand him back to your guard and continue the thing. So it's the same technique you use on that tight reach. Your elbows in, tight hands, flat pad level, same thing. Second step, all those good things. Now it comes to work with the uncovered offensive lineman. You're drop stepping to put yourself on the angle of the play. So if I'm uncovered, I have a 5 technique over here. I'm stepping here. I'm on the angle now. If this guy plays inside, I can take him. If he plays out, I can get my steps on the ground and climb to the linebacker. And you're keying the near hip or the near knee. So if I'm the uncovered guy, I'm staring. It sounds crazy, but I'm looking at this guy's near hip, near knee. If it comes to me, because if you're moving lateral as a D lineman, you see one of these hips or knees come at you, that's what's telling me, oh, do I need to overtake this or can I climb? Again, you don't want to reach across your body because you get turned. If you're reaching here, turned, backer plays behind you, you're screwed. You just lost the play. You should know if you're going to climb when your second step hits the ground. That's kind of the mantra. I mean, it can almost be first step, but usually you do things in 2. So you're going to be here. Okay, I can climb. I'm up to backer. If there's no color there, if his knee or his hip doesn't come at you, that's when you climb vertically to get to your backer. If color shows, then it turns into the half-man double team that we just went over. It turns into that. So Corbs and JC here, you can be a defense at the end. Play tackle for me, Corbs. So we have a 5 technique here, and the first one just going to play up the field a little bit. So I'm first step. I'm opening up. So now if he plays inside, I have that ability to see it. I'm keying this knee. So that went up the field with his second step, and now I know I'm going to be able to climb up. Your body presence, you kind of square on that angle, you're climbing to the linebacker, and you go. But now, if he plays inside on that first step, boom, I know I'm got to get myself in position to overtake this. So second step, and then we're in that half-man double team position. Corbett can drive and disengage to the linebacker, and I can hat replace, put my number on the play side, and we got a good double team going. I would say, depending on who you play, if I have a slip block, 70% of the time I'm climbing to the linebacker. I mean, you get wild defenses, but that's probably how it works. And again, it works for a slip. It works for a scoop. Tight ends, you got to work with them. I know you probably only get like 5 minutes a day to work on those double teams, but they'd like to run around blocks. You know, people think zone, they're like, oh, it's, passive, you're running side to side, but it's a physical play. I mean, some of my favorite blocks are when you can get these double teams going and moving guys. So we got a clip of that here. This is a scoop block on inside zone. Tackle reads, second step, he's climbing vertically on the guy. Slip block here, climbing vertically. All right, now this is actually one of my favorite techniques we have. We have a Philly block, and this is for when a center has a shade on him. You're running like a bob technique, so fullback on frontside backer, 2-back weak side zone. You have leverage on this linebacker. You have a shade technique. There's not really anywhere for the left guard to go. So basically he gets to be physical, help his center out, and they get a mean double team up to that linebacker. So if you're the covered offensive lineman here, the center, you're almost, again, doing our tight reach technique. Everything kind of works off itself here. You're going to position step with your play side foot, your second step, lead stepping. And the huge key is to use your guard. You know you should not overreach this guy on your first 2 steps because your guard's there with your body presence. No matter what this guy, if the shade here plays out, the guard's taking him. If he stays there and moves with you, the guard's going to put him back onto your lap. So there's no reason for you to overreach and let the guy beat you backside. The uncovered offensive lineman, again, we're talking about a settle step or flat lateral and a second lead step. The problem I see with this that happens a lot, I mean, everybody does it, is the uncovered guy steps back because for some reason it's hard when you're in a 3-point stance to just step straight forward. I know we coach it, it's easy, but for some reason it's a tough thing to do. So you just want to pick it up, put it down, and your second step is a lead step up the field. You don't want to lean back into the guy, but when the guy plays into you, that's when you use a shoulder, use a hand, and put him back onto your center. This is huge. Play side hand does not want to be involved with this block. Everything happens so quickly on the field. If you turn your shoulders and get this hand involved, the linebacker scraping over the top and making the play. You think you have all the time in the world, but that linebacker runs a 4.6 and he's coming downhill when he sees the fullback in the backfield, because we don't have very many of those in the NFL anymore. But let's show an example of this here. So if JC's playing center, we got a shade here. We're working to this backer here. We're calling a Philly. We're going to go a little slow here. So first step, I'm picking up, putting down. Second step, he's using me. And usually that's where the contact comes. I'm going to be, boom, through here. It's vertical. Do not want to get this hand involved. And when the linebacker plays over, you don't have to pin him over there. If he plays over the top super quick, you can drive him on that angle out of the play. Just because it's zone doesn't mean you're going to be beating the guy to his number every time. You could get in position, and you could drive him by. I got to look at that. Coming up. So we're looking at the left guard here and the center. Boom. Center doesn't get too aggressive on this. He's tight reaching. The guard puts him back on, climbs to the linebacker, and you got to play. All right, now we're talking about the backside combination blocks. We're going to call them A, B, C. A, center guard. B, guard tackle. C, tackle tight end. It's very similar to when you're a covered offensive lineman on the front side, when you have like a 2-eye technique if you're playing guard. It's very similar footwork. You're going to settle step, 6-inch flat lateral, vertical through the crotch. And this is where all the power comes from. This is when I tell guys, unless the linebacker's way bossed or playing downhill faster than heck, you use your shoulder, you're lifting into the hand. Second step in the ground, you're protecting your play side gap. A lot of times you tell a guy, worry about the double team. Linebacker runs straight through, makes a play, you don't get off on it. But you also want to stay engaged as long as possible until he makes you triggered. If you're the uncovered offensive lineman, you're drop stepping with your play side foot. You're lead stepping to get on the right angle. You don't want to reach, you're closing the distance again. My coaching point in my head is, my aiming point is the crease of the defender. So you have the covered guard and the defender, and there's a crease there between the two. I'm aiming with my aiming point of the uncovered guard. My head is going into that crease, and that's where I'm overtaking it. That's the movement. The covered guy lifts the guy. The uncovered guy starts the movement. You lift him up. The other guy should come in and clean that up. That should be a money block here. And we actually, a lot of people use the Crowler sled to work on double teams of the gap scheme and things like that. We actually did a lot of, I used it as B work. You know, if I'm playing left guard, I'm like, all right, I'm going to work on it as a B here. So we had a lot of Crowler work with Coach Wiley pretty much every day as well. But imagine I'm playing left guard. I have a 3 technique, a tight 3 technique here, and I'm going to B block, boom. 6-inch lateral, second step through the crotch, shoulder through the defender, and that's how you start on it. I mean, you're a little bit more vertical than you would be in a game, but this is the start of it. I mean, you get this down every day. That's how you start A block. That's how you start a B block. This is one of the things you use it on. You have a center here. JC is showing us how a center. He's a little tighter to the bag. Step, boom. Same thing. All the power comes through the force you put through the ground. How quick can you put that through the ground? Is your whole foot in the ground? How quick can you do it? Here's an example of an A block on the backside. I'm trying to get into that crease right there. 2 open up step, lead step. I'm in the crease. JC's climbing to the linebacker. Here's a B block. 1-2. How quick and powerful can you get that second step in the ground? How quick can this tackle open up, not understep, and get into the crease to move this guy? Left guard's lifting him up. Sean Coleman's making the movement, coming off on the linebacker. And the positive The positive part about that, I'm going to show a couple of examples too, is when you're settle stepping and you're all moving in unison, I can do this one. If the 3 technique crosses face as I'm stepping, I'm in position, and then you can just work him that way. This left tackle is going to be able to climb on the backer. It's almost a better play. If this 3 technique crosses and you have a tight end that can get in the way of this defensive end, you have a huge play. But you're putting yourself in position on the angle to make your blocks. But the whole thing is, if I could coach it, it's how quick can I take a good first step, not turn my shoulders too much, not lose ground, because that throws off your body, but step, down, lift through the defender, drive your feet, keep a base, and come off on the linebacker. Now we have a few examples from last season of different inside zones and how successful they were. You're going to be able to see in this clips, how a lot of them run backdoor, how a lot of the big plays, the tight end made a crucial block on these things. And we tried to pick a variety of different teams here. JC is going to start us off.
Yeah, so I just wanted to show you guys, like we were talking about, kind of when this ball hits front side. So right here you see it. We've got leverage on our ID. We've got the wide receiver coming in, going MDM. So this is one of the times that we think this ball is going to hit front side. We're going to have a nice guard center double team up to the linebacker that's going to create that crease.
So you have a gap here. They have a B on the backside. Tight end does a good job, but this is one of the few times, like JC said, it's hitting front side. You'll take 8 yards any day of the week.
This is, again, just another time where we're going to hit it front side. Again, we've got leverage on the ID, and we're going to get front side movement. So we got both of the kind of indicators when you're getting a front side run. So we get the guard up to the ID backer. The tackle does a good job of staying under his base and pinning that guy inside. And again, this ball is going to hit front side in these instances.
And as you can see here, the front side left tackle is an important part of this play, but he's not trying to kill this guy. I mean, the worst thing he can do is get beat inside right away and tackle the backfield. He's under control. He's taking his steps. He's taking him where he wants to go, and the running back's making the right read. All right. So this is a good example of a tight reach by the right. Oh, no, just kidding. Running off the B block. We're running off the B block here. So the right guard gets his feet in the ground, powerful second step. He's a little high. The right tackle comes in and creates movement. I mean, it's not going to be pretty all the time. These guys are driving this guy to the linebacker. They're getting bodies on bodies. Center does a good job of tight reaching here. No penetration. Slip on the front side. Climbing to the linebacker. Tight end MA's here. Not the best play, but that's what they do, right? He could be sifting up to this safety here, or even staying on Melvin Ingram here. A little brain damage, like Coach White likes to say. Duke needs to run him over. 5 yards right there. This is a tight reach by the right guard. Concise footwork. He's trying to get his helmet outside. This D tackle I have the B gap. He's widening with him. I mean, you move him from inside the hash to 2 yards outside, that's a win in the NFL. Backside, they have a B block. He plays inside. Keep him pinned inside. Strong outside hand. Center does a good job of climbing when he sees the 3 technique play out. Tries to get a hand on the linebacker. And left tackle climbs here. We should have handed this one again. I think that happens at all levels, right? You call an RPO and they throw the ball and you have it blocked up perfectly. Pass run option. This is an example of a tight reach by the left tackle. I mean, Greg Robinson, he's actually one of the most physically gifted, athletic freaks I've ever been around. And if he knows what he's doing, he can really move people. But how quick he gets that second step in the ground. It almost looks like he crosses over, but this guy's such a wide technique that he can be that aggressive on this. He knows the fullback's coming inside. He knows if he takes the fight to him, there's a good chance he's going to move him. He's going to wide with him. And you also have a good example of a gap on the front side here. Moving the guy to the linebacker. It's not always pretty, but if you have guys on guys, you're running your feet, you're finishing, good things usually happen. Aiming point, let's go back. Start. Okay. So, on a front side zone play, you still have the play side number aiming point where you're thinking of, but he's so wide, you're probably not going to get there on your first 2 or 3 steps. So he takes his steps, he's trying to get there. The guy's in pass rush mode, so he gets up the field a little bit, and it's not always going to be perfect, but he's still aiming for that play side number. If you can make contact and put your head on that play side number, the guy's threatened by his gap. He has to have outside containment. And so on this play, he kind of got up the field a little bit, and Big Greg did a good job of driving his feet and moving him. This is another front side gap here. Center does a good job. Start the movement, center fires off, and makes the movement happen. If you take the double team to the linebacker, no one has to really get off on that. But again, here's an example of running off the B block too. Boom, back door. Another front side, center and right guard. Boom, feet are in the ground. Look at this right tackles. You're playing against the Denver Broncos. They have some of the best pass rushers in the league. Sometimes you got to change up your technique. He knows these guys like to pass rush a lot. The ball's most likely not coming out the front door. You can be a little bit more inside out. You know, obviously, talking here, you want to be on the play side number, but just keep him out of the play. Here, B block, linebacker kind of plays back door. So left tackle's a little bit more vertical here. You're going more vertical. Tight end does a good job of keeping this guy out, and you got a big play. This is a slip on the front side. The tackle, I think, could be a little more aggressive in this situation when he has inside help. He can fire off because he knows that the left guard's going to be there if anything happens to him. This linebacker's filling downhill. Kevin does a good job of getting a piece of him, running for 5 yards.
On your split versus gap, is it just off of backer alignment, or is it also?
It's usually off of backer alignment, but it goes along with where the shade is playing. So in this situation, you have a shade. Linebacker's here. He's going to be the one-on-one block. We're going to be, if this guy was a 2-eye, we'd probably call a gap. But the left tackle has the right. If he thinks that defensive end's coming inside and you have a 2-eye or something, he thinks they're slanting, he can call you off and say, hey, let's slip this. Let's protect my inside gap here. And that goes into what JC was saying. You want to keep the 2-man double teams, but sometimes you need a 3-man double team. Sometimes you need a 3-man combo on the front side if they're a big pirate team. This is a slip with an inside move. Not a great run, but left guard puts himself in position to overtake that. Left tackle gets his hands on the guy. The B block here, he gets held a little bit, can't get off on the linebacker. That's why you need that powerful second step to jolt the guy enough to get off. And if you're having trouble, if you're getting held a bunch, then maybe you have to go to your hand. Maybe you have to get the guy off. Or Coach Wiley likes, you can man block him and pull the right tackle around, but we don't have any clips of that.
We had it ready.
We had it ready. We practiced it.
Go back to that one, Joe.
Okay.
The running back read is that guy.
Correct.
He goes inside the ball should go here.
Yeah, running back should take it.
Got a full brain game.
Running back should take it right here, out the gate.
You talked about the center versus the tilt.
Go ahead, JC.
Yeah, so this is tough, and this is one of the things you kind of rely on the back, and I'm going to touch more on in the outside zone especially. You rely on the back to reach his aiming point because, again, like we said, we're expecting this to kind of come backside. So you need to get at least a little bit of stretch on this guy where if the back doesn't reach his aiming point and shortens it to here, that lineman's going to be sitting right there and then can jump backside right into where the back's cutting. So I really get on the backs whenever we've got zone in. I get on the backs all week about reaching their aiming point and getting that little bit of stretch to help me out to get that push and that reach on that defensive lineman. So I want to get, like Joel was saying, my helmet on the play side number, and then I want to have that strong backside hand because I know eventually that defensive lineman is going to try to go backside when the ball goes there. So I want to have that backside hand clamped in, and as I try to get 2-3 yards of movement, and don't, again, if you give up the press, you're causing your own demise there. If you get pressed back, the back's going to have to roll back early, and you're in trouble. You're causing your own problem. So you want to just stalemate them at the line of scrimmage and try to get them to wash 2 or 3 yards over, and then realize eventually that guy is going to come backside, and you got to protect that with your backside hand.
And just to touch on that, it's unrealistic to think centers in the league can reach and drive a center off the ball. So if you keep up no penetration and drive them a couple yards, have a strong inside hand, that's a win a lot of the times in the NFL. Just an example of a Philly block here. So they lose a little bit of leverage with the motion, but the guard does a good job of getting in and putting the nose guard on him. Look at this running back. He gets to the heels of the offensive lineman, makes his first cut. They wash it all down backside. Someone loses the gap, out the door. This is with movement. You have another Philly with movement here. So he slants across. That's why the center doesn't need to be too aggressive. He can play back on his linebacker. Guard washes him out. Center takes his fullback up, out the door for 5. And here, this is an example. The right side could be a lot more vertical here. You don't need to be on that angle because your linebacker is back here. You can lay on that double team all day. Again, left tackle, inside out footwork, play side number with your helmet, but you don't want to get beat inside. This is an A block on the back side, right here. Vertical movement, come off on the linebacker, out the door. This is more horizontal movement. So you're not always going to drive a guy 5 yards off the ball, but if you can force movement somewhere, there's going to be a seam. Also, an example of the tight end slicing. I mean, Cam Jordan, 290-pound defensive end. Tight ends can't usually block that guy one-on-one. But if you can bring him across the formation, cut his legs out, he's going to make a business decision. Does he want to make that play or does he want to get sacked later in the game? It's just another idea to, take football out of these guys. You're running out the door. Now we got an example of a B block here on the left side. Right here. And this is a quick B block. The linebackers for Tampa were playing downhill, so we had to be ready to come off the ball. Again, pass run option. We throw the ball, of course. Tight end actually does a good job, though, here of cutting off JPP, and there could have been a seam up the thing. I think we score if we run it, but we passed it and got tackled. All right, and sometimes it's not going to be pretty. You tell guys, don't step under yourself. Don't do this, Be great. But when you're a freak like Tyron Smith, you can step under yourself and still drive a guy 8 yards off the ball or whatever he does on this play. That's Fletcher Cox, too, so that's a pretty good D tackle. But Elliott does a great job of getting to the line, making that cut, making one guy miss. I mean, if it's a corner trying to tackle your running back, I think most people are going to take your running back in that situation. This is a good example of a C block here. So you're working with a tight end. Tackle. Tackle does a good job getting his second step in the ground, lifting. Tight end gets a little square here. He can drive on the angle, but he does a good job of covering up. And sometimes they do have one more guy. Your running back's supposed to make this guy miss up here. You're not accounted for. But look at this wall that the front side created. Everybody's inside out. On the front side there's a wall created. He has an angle to cut. Now you're one-on-one with the safety. And a lot of times in the NFL, that's what it is. You're one-on-one with a guy. You got to make a tackle or make someone miss. Just a couple more in inside zone here. This is an example of a B block turning into a C block. So he starts his B block. They have a safety coming off the edge. We're bringing this receiver in here to block this safety, but a smart offensive lineman knows, hey, they're probably crossing my face, so I'm going to take a step to put myself in position, open step. He goes away. I can come back, help my tight end out. Boom. Climb to my backer. There's a hole there. And those things take time. I mean, you come into the NFL and someone's like, oh, make sure you check and then climb. You know, I'm just happy that I remembered to B block on this play when you first get in the league, you know what I mean? But these guys get repetition. They're taking their steps, they're feeling it, they're reading defenses. As Coach Wiley always says, you check where the safeties are first, then your linebackers, then your closest defender. This is a couple examples of well-run zone plays here. So this is kind of also a gap turning into a slip on the move. Their linebacker kind of plays out right on the snap. Boom. Good B block on the backside. Center does his job. That's a win. Tight end, great job here of sifting. He knows this guy's in pass rush. He's going to get up to that safety that's in the box, gets a piece of him. 10 yards. Good finish here by the O-line, too. Again, an example of a way to take away this guy without having to one-on-one block him. Boom, cut his legs out. And this is just a player opinion, but it's nice to run against a six-man box. You know, sometimes you get 8, 9 guys in the box, it gets a little crowded. And there's time for that, but when you got six-man box, you only got to win a couple blocks here, and there's seams everywhere.
Joel, run that back one more time. So we kind of touched on it earlier too, in the tight end slicing across the zone here. It's going to cause the linebackers to slow up a little bit. So you can tell this backside linebacker, he sees that tight end slicing, he basically takes himself out of the play. So that's just a solid change up and keep them guessing as well.
Good point. Same thing here, just tight end, coming back, block the D end, touchdown. And this is an example of running the bob play and an A block on the backside, just another example of how we run it. All right, and that's it for the inside zone portion. We're going to touch on outside zone. We're probably not going to go into as much detail, but we're going to go through it, and we have some more clips for you guys. But do you guys have any questions on the inside zone or anything we were talking about, or any questions, honestly, about stuff you guys have issues with or anything like that?
You guys get a call on like a slicer. Do you know that it's a slicer coming or?
Yeah, so I mean, there's terms for it. We've had a bunch. We have seal, slice, whatever it is. That's usually tagged, and obviously you know going into the week whether you have that in the game plan. But honestly, I think that's one of our favorite runs. I think it just kind of slows up those linebackers a little bit more and puts them in a little bit of a indecision where their read is. And we've had some pretty good success running those slices across, letting that tight end, instead of having to block him one-on-one, just chop that guy's legs out instead.
Yes, that's why the inside hand's so important too. But when he overtakes that and you feel like the ball could hit front side, you want to keep your head in that placement and run to finish. That's one of the times where you think, hey, this ball might hit front side. But also, they could bring nickel pressure off the edge, and they're slanting that guy, and so the running back gets spooked by that, and he could cut back as well. So you can't just be like, oh, I'm going to turn my hips on this guy and pin him, because there's different variables.
What's the aiming point at the second level?
Second level, you're still going to go after the play side number. You want to give them the illusion that, hey, I got you cut off, take yourself out of the play. And you're still aiming for that play side number on this. Backers a little bit trickier because they're jumping around, they're doing different things. But once you get your hands on those backers, just take them where they want to go, and you can really finish them.
Is the only couple guys that you block, how much surface area are you taking, how much surface area is the back?
Yeah, so, I mean, in an ideal world, you want to be 50-50. But a lot of the times, the guy could be playing into you a lot harder. A lot of the times, he could play out. You know, if you're running a really good zone team or a really good gaps team, a lot of times in the NFL, this 3 technique is being taught to take the tackle over. And so the guard is, you don't want to fall back into the block, but the guard's just going vertical through the field, and he's not getting very much at all. So it's really a feel thing. Ideal world, you say 50-50. You know, you're lifting the guy, turning the guy's play side number, and the guy's coming back and taking over on the backside number.
What's your favorite drill to work the backside hand?
The backside what?
Your backside hand?
We do a lot of finish drill and stuff like that, and honestly, it's a thing that it's hard to drill. You know what I mean? You have a thing, but you can work on it where you're doing a finish drill, and at some point, the coach gives the guy, hey, play back, and can you redirect? You don't want to hold, but can you redirect and finish with that backside leg so you're still in front of the guy? Because if you're in front of a defender, they're not going to call holding, 9 out of 10 times. But it's one of those things. I had a coach, actually, Kyle Shanahan, told me my rookie year I played in the outside zone world with him, and he told me that besides being athletic and strong, he thought that grip strength was one of the more important things for an offensive lineman to work on, just in the weight room and things like that.
One other drill that we do is you kind of mimic that you're already engaged in the block. So you get your hands on the guy, and then you're working on just kind of driving that backside knee, but then you're also going to have that clamp on your hand. So you're going to start, you don't want to pick up this foot, you want to drive that backside knee to create the power, and you want to push, but then you've got this hand latched in where if that guy were to try to play, then that's when you come back and you keep that pressure backside to not let him play back into the backside cutback.
And there's kind of a built-in shoulder pad right there that you get your hand on. That's a really aiming point, where you can kind of latch on.
You showed the gap and moved to the slip.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about answers when they've got a tight shade like that. Are you able to help the center when he's tight on his body? You guys?
Yeah, it's difficult, especially when you run zone, because you don't want to work too far back on the thing. But JC also has the right to call a gap or a Philly when he feels like he needs help. So if we have a tight shade and JC's playing center, he can face this way, and we've had a tight shade, they have a 5 technique, and that we're working to this linebacker here. You're asking, how do we help the center here? You could say, hey, you're by yourself, left tackle, be inside out on this. We're going to gap this still. I'm still going to step with my front side leg. I'm still going to step vertical, but my body presence there should give him the ability that he can drive out at him, be more aggressive with him, because if he plays anywhere this way, I'm going to be there to put him back. And even if I start a slip and I feel like he's playing out, I can go vertical and help back at some point in the block if he's trying to overtake. So it's just something that you work on during the week.
And as a center, I like it being clear. So if I've got kind of a non-penetrator at the 2-eye technique, I don't mind if we know we've got kind of a jump around defensive end out there that's causing some problems jumping inside. I don't mind if going into the block, I know I'm one-on-one with just a wider of a reach. I'm fine going up there and just be like, hey, just slip this anyways. I'll go and go one-on-one with them. And that kind of takes the thinking out of it, because again, that's how I prefer it, is sticking in 2-man concepts, because I don't want to get stuck in taking half the man, then Joel's got to leave to go help the tackle, and now all of a sudden I'm beat up the field. So if I can go into the block and just say, this guy's not penetrating anyways, I've got time to get my second step over to him, just slip it and I'll be able to handle it. That's another way we handle it, is just kind of the center making it clear to begin with.
And if I have a 2-eye on me and I'm slipping, he's going to feel like, oh, hey, we're running outside zone, or they're running zone this way. He's going to move with me, creating more space for the center, instead of, a lot of times you use their bodies and their movement to make a move. Like, it's hard to move these big dudes. Like, you got a 350-pound guy, even with a great double team, it's hard to move these guys. So if you can get them moving laterally, and then you can take them where they want to go, it actually helps in that sense too.
JC, you talking about how you get on the backs when you got the shade during the week.
Yep.
Has your approach changed when it's an offset inside zone? Are you a little tighter? Do you change your approach at all on the shade?
When you're talking about when it's not a gun?
Yeah.
So for me, inside zone wise, not really. The back's aiming point is going to be a little tighter there, but I'm still thinking the same thing. I just want to move that guy probably 2 yards, and now I know that that ball's not going to influence him at all. That ball's not going to get outside of me where that defensive tackle is going to slide out with him. So this is more just on me, where that really is going to emphasize that backside hand. When we get into outside zone, that's one that we know is going to be tighter. And that's when we kind of have to treat it a little different, more like a mid zone than an outside zone, because again, that back's not going to come all the way across and then roll all the way backside. So again, that puts more onus just on the center to be able to handle that almost one-on-one with no influence.
And if in the offset, in the gun, the B block to me is a little bit more vertical on the backside because that ball is rolling back a little bit quicker here. They don't have that full open. In the front side, you're still play side number, but they're going to be a little bit more inside out. That even hits out the front door less than others because it's more vertical. They're almost half-man double teams on the backside because when they're in the gun, they have that read option, and the linebackers are frozen a lot of the times. You don't know which way they're going to play. When you're running straight downhill, those linebackers usually have a gap, and they're filling those gaps. All right, I think we'll go over outside zone a little bit here.
Told you see how smart these guys are. See the detail they put on it, okay? When you get the smart players, it's really easy to coach.
Appreciate it. So we're going to go, I'm not going to be redundant on all the kind of the common points of inside, outside zone. I'm just going to kind of touch on the differences here. So obviously we're a little wider. Our aiming point now from the play side number goes to the play side armpit. We're looking for a little more stretch. Also the back we talked about being the inside leg of the play side tackle. Now we're running to the tight end or the ghost tight end. We want that extra stretch out of both the defensive linemen and the linebackers. We want to, as we jump down here, we want to create that movement, not just at that backside double team. We want to create that horizontal and vertical movement all across the line. The most important part is stopping that backside three technique. And it's tough. There's really three ways to do it. Obviously, in a perfect world, you can just maul that three technique. You can get a great double team, you can move them back, but really the only time you're going to get that option is when you have leverage on your linebacker. When the guard has a chance to rock back into that three technique and get the tackle time to get his feet around and then start getting that vertical and horizontal push. But all of a sudden, most of the time, the linebacker is going to have leverage on you. You're going to be out leveraged. And that guard is taught, if I have to get to my linebacker, he's much faster than I am, I've got to run through the heels of the next down lineman. So that guard's opening here, and at best, you're going to get a passive hand to try to hold off that defensive tackle. So now the right tackle or the backside tackle is stuck in a position where he's got to stop a penetrator who's going to be running up the field and then running right off the butt of the guard. And how is he going to get across? That's a tough block, as tough as you're going to face in the run blocking. The other two ways to do it, we've got the cut block, which we all know about, and then we've got something that we call the back pad that is becoming more and more prominent in the NFL. And that move, we're gonna show it a couple times on film. We're going to show it to you guys. But that one, you don't want to go into the block thinking I'm going to back pad a guy. You want to have that be a reactionary move after you've been out leveraged by that defensive tackle. So again, I will show that. That's going to come up in our clips. But right here, just to kind of go through some coaching points of what should be going through the lineman's head on these certain calls. So first of all, like we were saying, the back's aiming point is that ghost tight end when you're running open side, outside zone. For the center, if we get up here, like we talked about, the reason that's so important is you want to have that defensive tackle feel out leveraged by the running back. You want to feel him be like, oh crap, I've got to get out there. That guy's out past me. And that's when the center can then re-accelerate his feet and create that vertical and horizontal movement. Like Joel was saying, you want to use these big guys' bodies when they get moving horizontally. You want to use that momentum against them, and that's when you kind of accelerate your feet. Then as the tackle, it's important. We need to create stretch across the whole line. And then once one guy's out of position, that's where you get the big hole. So for the tackle, sometimes you'll watch a guy come out and pitter-patter his feet because he doesn't want to get beat inside, and the guy's nervous. But we need that tackle to let it loose. So if I'm the tackle, when I get to the line, first off, I want to know what's going on inside of me. So what's the call from the center and the guard? If we've got a gap here, I know I'm by myself. Those two are double teaming up to the linebacker. I've got to figure out a way to block this guy and let it loose and get this stretch. So that's when he really becomes keyed into the back. So if this tackle reaches and tries to get that aiming point, as long as he doesn't cross over and miss his guy, if that guy jumps inside, the back's aiming point should get the ball outside, and the defensive end shouldn't even be able to make the play. So you got to create confidence in that tackle to be able to let it loose and create that stretch, because all of a sudden, if he pitter-patters his feet and just plays inside out, the back's got to shorten his aiming point, which puts the center and guard in a bind, and then the ball ends up rolling back to a guy that's just sitting backside. So you got to make sure that tackle creates that movement front side. Now, all of a sudden, you get this opportunity where now the center's covered, the guard's the one uncovered. Now, if I'm the tackle, I should feel great. I've got a great back's path, and I know my guard's going to be in my hip pocket. This is where you should really be able to let it loose and go, because if that guy wants to jump inside, the guard's got him, then you get up to the ID. So really the time that you need to really worry about it is when you hear this call. You got to be in tune with what's going on inside, and you hear whether it's going to be a guard and center double team or whether you're going to get the inside help here. I think that's all we got. Then we're going to run the clips. Or do you got anything?
I'm going to go over just a couple other things that we're talking about. So double team wise, actually let's start with just a reach. Now you're reach blocking one-on-one. So Corbett, I'm going to use you over here. And like JC said, you want to run off the ball in outside zone. The guys that kind of play it slow, I feel like you don't get a true sense of, hey, I'm reaching you right now. So if I'm playing left tackle or left guard and I got a 3 technique or a 5 technique, you're opening up a little bit more. You're more on the angle, and your aiming point is the play side armpit now. That's where we're telling guys to aim. And if you're worried about the guy going inside, you just have to get a hand on him. The ball should be out the gate if the guy plays inside, especially if you're one-on-one blocking and the other double teams are working up. So if I step, boom, boom, I'm on the angle. You do not want to cross over this second step. You see guys, when you get a wide guy, they come here, they cross over, then he plays into me, and then you get destroyed. But if you can run off the ball, boom, boom, and you're on that angle, he's going to run with you. That's where you create the stretch. And this is key. My backside hand, some guys kind of grab and stuff, but my backside hand is aiming right for this pec, because even more so than on inside zone, the ball's coming behind you at some point. At some point, there's a play where he's going to try and fall back, and you got to hold him just enough to make that play work. On the outside zone, scheme-wise, you're trying to get one guy out of his gap. One guy. If you can get that backside B-block, if you can get someone out of his gap, the running back's going to take one cut and be out the door. If we're the uncovered now, JC would use you too. So if I'm the uncovered guy, we talked about on inside zone, 2 steps, watching for that knee or hip, and climbing. Now it's going to be 3 or 4 steps. So we can scoot over a little bit so you don't fall off the stage, Corbett. So we're going outside zone. I'm on the angle, opening up so I can overtake if I need to. I'm taking my steps. If there's any color showing, you can clear the color if it's not an immediate inside move. So if he's not immediately slanting, you can clear the color, push him out, and climb to the back. That creates a seam between you two. If he plays inside, I'm on the right path to overtake the guy. And he can climb to the backer. And then if he just plays out, you're taking your 3 steps. 1, 2, 3. I know I'm climbing on my angle. Another big issue we see with outside zone, and I think Coach Wiley said it every day in practice last year, is guys get in position. So I'm climbing to the linebacker. Guys get in position on these linebackers, and they're like, oh, I got him reached. So they try and square up and stop. That's when the linebacker plays over the top, and you miss your block. It's hard to coach because you feel like I reach the guy, I can stop, I can wheel on him, and then he just keeps playing over the top and makes the tackle. It's kind of a long developing play, so you got to stay on your angle. No matter who you're blocking on the play, you want to stay on your angle. And then the other thing we have a hard time learning as offensive linemen still is when you have the 2-eye and we're working a gap technique to this front side linebacker. A lot of guys run around this defender. So you have a linebacker in this B gap, you have an A gap defender. I'm like, oh shit, I got to get to this linebacker. How am I going to get there? So you just start running to this linebacker. Outside zone, when you get to these linebackers, you want to be on the armpit, but you can run them past the play too. You don't have to be you don't have to get in front of him. You just get your hands on him. It's more important to get to the guy than to get in front of him, because you can make plays happen. But the key here for the guard when you're doing a gap on outside zone is you want to open up to the play side. You want to be on the same path as the back, so you're here. But this second step, it's where all the power comes from in every block. You're down and you're here. I would not use the shoulder on outside zone because you need levers. You need to be able to run the guy. But this second step cannot cross over, because if you cross over, you get turned. Bad things happen. You cannot F your buddy. That's how plays get messed up. I run around, Corbett makes the play. So he's your teammate. I'm staying here. We're going to walk through this a little bit quicker. Boom, boom, I'm down. And then I'm on my angle to the linebacker. Gives him a chance to make the play. And then if we're on the backside, just a quick, we're talking A, B's, and C's. One of the hardest things I see guys have an issue with is everybody understeps on themselves. So if we are here, let's face this way. If we're here and we're A blocking here, and I got to cut off Corbett on the backside of this play, everybody steps and they're underneath themselves with this backside foot. It's one of the biggest issues that we have. And it's hard. Some of the best athletes in the world, you're like, hey, just open step. Hey, it's easy, just open step. You're fine. But when you get into the heat of action, your body moves faster than you think. You step, you're underneath yourself, and you're behind the play. So my mental thought process is when I get in my stance, is I'm like, all right, I've got to reach this. I'm putting my weight on my left foot. I'm curling my toes into the ground. Joe Thomas told me to feel like I'm stretching the ground between my feet. So you have a base that you're working on. And then when you're opening up, you're here on the angle. Second step gets you on the right path, and you can run. It's one of those things you have to tell yourself. You can't just be like, all right, I'm going to cut this guy off, because then you end up bad steps. And I mean, you'll see in the film, I still take bad steps doing that. It's one of the hardest things on the backside of these plays to do it. And if you take a bad step, you end up getting in a bad position, and it's kind of tough. But yeah, we're going to run through these plays now. We kind of did a quick thing, so if you have any questions on that, we'll go over that too. But we got some examples. All the plays are the same. So I mean, all the calls. So we're still running gaps. We're still running slips. We're still running scoops. On the backside, ABCs. We call them A1, B1, C1, just so we know, hey, we're running outside zone here.
Guys, real quick, on our defense can't. That will triggers right now. So if I think these played outside, that gives them back to me. They know we're going to combo the 2-eye. And that will
This one.
triggers right there. You guys got anything for that? Helping that center out when that will's coming? The guard's got to go right now. It's tough as hell.
Yeah.
Anything from the center to tell them?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I see that ball's going to have to go backside. Now you're going to have almost two guys in that one gap. There's going to be really nowhere for that back to go. So at that point, you'd still love it if your guard can just give you something, just even a quick hand or just a jab into him where the defensive line slows a step. But at that point, you just become you want to run the defensive lineman past the vision of the back. So that all of a sudden you get him here, your buddy leaves, and now he's got you out leverage. That's when you want to accelerate that backside knee and end up pushing him past the vision of the back. Therefore, the back will roll, see it, and then he's got to cut backside. The backer's taking up his hole.
In a perfect world, you get your head on the play side armpit all the time, but it doesn't happen. You know what I mean? The guy's a 2-eye. He has you out leveraged by two gaps. You got to run like hell, and you got to fight like hell to keep him on the line of scrimmage, or give your back a chance to get to the line of scrimmage at least, so he can make a cut off that. And if you have a chance here, if this Mike, is he firing as well, or is he more? He's going to scrape? Okay. So if you can get a good B block, if you can cut this guy off or move him or get someone cut off. You just need one guy out of his gap. If you can get one guy out of his gap, you can get your foot in the ground and get vertical. We got this one. Oh. So we got the left tackle here. I mean, the Niners are one of the better teams in the league at running outside zone. They're in the Shanahan system, but the left tackle has no fear here. He's running off the ball. The guy's wide, so he crosses over a little bit, but the guy's a freaking 9-jet technique. But gets his hands in, runs his feet. I mean, he takes them from the hash to outside the numbers. You can't really do much better than that.
And that's what we teach our tackles to kind of have when you're watching film on yourself, an aiming point. So when you're starting on the hash, when your feet are on the hash, you would love to stretch your guy all the way to the numbers. That's the goal. That's how much horizontal movement you want to get out of your guy when you kind of let it loose. So this is a perfect example of it.
Yeah, center does a good job here reaching, but see how he really turns on him. I mean, they all reach him pretty good here. But you can just stay on the angle. See how this backside backer doesn't quite get to his linebacker's backside guard, doesn't quite get to him, but he can run him. You love to see him just stay running him.
Real quick, is that center trying to hook with that left snap on that shed or 2-eye right there?
Yeah, so some guys get that. You see a lot. Corey Linsley in Green Bay does that a lot. You see him, the moment he snaps, his hands reaching out to grab him, and the moment he feels when he can get him here, he feels like he can then accelerate his feet and almost wrench him backside. So I don't usually do that. I go more with my feet and try to race him to that point and then accelerate my feet if I can't reach him. And it's more of a feel thing where I would love to reach the guy right away. All of a sudden, if he reads it too and now it becomes a race down the line of scrimmage, I'm going to keep fighting to reach. And then the moment I know I'm not going to win this, that's why I want to accelerate my backside hand and just push him down the line. And like Joel said, eventually the ball is going to cut behind somebody. So if you feel like you can't get that guy reached, that's when you want to accelerate it and let the ball, you're going to be the one that's going to cut behind when you can't get the reach done.
I think to be careful, though, is the issue I have if people just go for that reach right away is you give up your chest a lot of the time. And this guy is firing off if you have a penetrating. If he runs with you, that's okay. But if he's penetrating, he'll get your chest and he'll drive you into the backfield. And sometimes there's issues with that. Left tackle again here. Moves his guy. I mean, the whole front side here. Moves their guy. None of them get to the armpit land point. None of them make it there, but they're aiming there. One of the best guards in the league right there. Gives him his arm. The right tackle does a great job. He doesn't get him cut off, but he moves him. I mean, they're moving these guys 10 yards laterally. Gets on the number, keeps running it. This is a perfect example. No one really got to their play side armpit here, but they all ran. The boot keeps this defensive end, and the tight end does enough job sifting where the running back just has to beat one, and he's out the door.
And this is kind of an example. You see the Will. Obviously, he's not firing hard, but he's penetrating that gap. He's coming downhill. The guard gets a little bit of that one tech, that 2-eye, and then that center is just going to run him by. That center knows that he's by himself then. He's got to accelerate his feet, and the ball's going to end up wrapping back behind him. So these are just kind of showing the ways in which you can handle that backside 3 technique. You can just run it. Right here, obviously, you get just a great B, a heavy B almost. The guard gets a full shoulder in it. The defensive tackle's kind of playing flat, making your job easier. You can get that double team to handle that backside 3 technique, and that's where you get that huge hole backside. That's an easy run. Now this is going to be the first clip we'll show. There's a bunch more of the back pad. So going into this block, you don't want to go into it expecting to do what the right tackle does there. A lot of that's going to be reactionary. Whether you take a bad step, see how he gains no width with his first step and he kind of steps under himself. Now all of a sudden you're stuck in you've got a problem. That guy's already penetrated. He's already got to your shoulders, and you're not going to be able to take him over. So you're either going to have to cut him or back pad him. So this is something we've done a lot more with the back pad, where if you take that bad first step and that guy's up the field, now it has to happen instantly or they're going to get you for holding. So if you try to wash him too long and then back pad him, by that time the ref's eyes are going to be on you, you're going to get holding. But if instantly you see it, he's got me, and you swing around him, they're usually not going to make that call. So that's something you're going to see on probably 5 to 7 clips in here, is that tackle swinging around the guy and then walling him off. So it's right here, you're just going to back pad him, and you're going to use his momentum against him. He's firing off the ball, and you're just going to swing his momentum forward, and then by that time, now you're here, and now you've almost reverse reached him. Instead of reaching him from the front, you've reached from the back, and now you've got him cut off. So you'll see that a few times. Green Bay does it really well. You'll see a bunch of clips of Green Bay doing it. But again, you don't want to go into the block thinking, I'm going to take a bad step here and then just back pat him. You want to go in going for the reach, and then if not, then you have to accelerate your feet and back pat him.
Center here, I mean, I think that's a win on outside zone anytime, any day of the week. You're like, oh, he didn't reach him, but he moved him 6 yards down the line of scrimmage. They got 2 guys out of gaps. It's a long run.
And again, this is just the last thing. This is a cut. This is the best cut in the world, but it gets the job done.
Might be a fine.
But all of a sudden, again, you can't get across to him. You take a shot at his legs. You just hope you don't get a FedEx on Wednesday.
But see, I mean, he doesn't have great placement here, but at least he gets 3 steps on the ground before he cuts. You don't want to cut on the first step. You want to get 3 steps on the ground. You want to be on that angle before you cut the guy off. It's probably like a $9,000 fine. All right, this is an example of not getting to the play side armpit, but running the guy past the vision of the eyes of the back. So you're not always going to be perfect, but if you can get on the defender and run him by, there's going to be a lane for this guy to cut off.
And that backer just creeps up, do you just change your call, or is it just automatically a reaction?
That's more reactionary. So again, that's one of the main just general coaching points of inside zone is you've got your gap. So whether you go into it thinking I've got the defensive tackle to the linebacker, or whether it's not your linebacker at all, if that guy comes in your gap, you've got to take him. So I'm obviously watching and understanding that if something comes front side, that's going to be mine. So when I see this guy creep, I know all of a sudden I've got to go, and I think everybody else, Joel can speak to it, kind of just react off that. Of then you've got to take. If I take your guy, you've got to come and take my guy.
You wouldn't want to turn back. Like, even if this right tackle is going to 51, I think this was a no-huddle play, and honestly, we were both going to one backer, but you don't want this right tackle to come back and stop thing, because someone's coming in. A safety's coming in. This backer's flying over the top. Someone's going to be there for him to take. It's a pizza theory. Someone takes your slice, you take their slice. So it's something that happens. If you can make a call, if you can change it before the ball snap, great. But a lot of times things happen real quick. So that we were trying to end the game here. We were up by a few touchdowns, and we finally got an outside zone called out here. Big Greg knew that this guy was coming inside, so he called me off. So in a perfect world, maybe we would say gap to this guy here. But Greg said, no, let's slip this. We're going to slip up to this linebacker. So JC has a tough block here. This is a man block right here. 2-eye. His arm is down, so he's probably working that way too. I mean, it's a tough thing to do. And look at JC runs him enough. He doesn't get to his armpit, but he runs him enough. Greg does a good job. There's some penetration still, from the front side, but we do enough. And the backside B block, Kevin Zeitler and Chris Hubbard do a great job of running their guys past. I mean, Kevin's locked in right there, has his backside hand, perfect position, big run to end the game. This is showing just a guard reaching a 3 technique here. Strong inside hand, you're making a gap. Center does a good job on the A block to get up to this linebacker. We got 12 guys in the box here. 4-minute offense, we're ending the game. This is a good example of a gap on the front side. So they have leverage. The center runs on that angle to overtake. There's color there. He can't push it across the guy's face. He overtakes him. I'm not a huge cut on the second level guy. I mean, you could throw at guys in open space. It takes practice, though, and it's hard to practice without pads on and stuff like that. But a lot of times you see this. Both guys I mean, they slow him down, but they both kind of miss, and they're in there on the tackle. Just get up on him and run him. Be there for him. They're going to be able to cut off of that.
Do you ever have, like with this left guard here, kind of overshoot some and the backers play behind him?
Yeah.
What do you do for that?
You don't want to tell the guy to slow down because when you slow down, then he plays over the top of you. But you want to be on the right angle to start. So if I'm playing left guard and I run and I took a too sharp of an angle, I'm going to overtake him, and he's playing behind me. I will pivot and I will run him back this way. But that's only if for sure he's behind me. But if he's on the angle with you, you just kind of run with him and stuff. But if he's playing behind me, I will stop and turn and pivot because then he's out of his gap. You don't want him to run through. Also, though, if like we're on this angle, let's say this front side linebacker played back here, then this guard has the ability to take him, and if this other backer played over the top, then this center and right guard can take him. So it's kind of a feel thing. That's one of the things you need to practice, just continuing, hey, don't overrun this, be on the right angle, get on these guys. But if he is playing over back, I've been okay with pivoting back and blocking the guy. This is an example of a slip on the front side. Left guard's checking his hips. He's out there. He climbs to his backer. Center does a great job of reaching him here. That's Corey Lindsey. See how he goes with his outside left arm, tries to jump him, but he's still running him on the angle, has that strong backside hand. Just enough. I mean, that's close, but he is just enough where the guy can't fall off and make the play. Here's an example of a back pad on the backside. Takes a bad step, but he gets a chance, back pads him, gets in front of him. This is a Philly technique, right? Oh no, another gap, another slip, sorry. Linebacker's downhill, he climbs right away. Center does a heck of a job. I mean, reaches him, 2 steps, stays on the angle, turns back because the guy's playing behind him. The right guard here, a little cut behind, gets a little trip there. Hopefully I didn't see that. But that's another way to get him down.
And again, what we've been talking about is you don't have to get him fully reached. See, this guard just accelerates his feet and takes the guy where he wants to go, pushes him out, and you know the back's going to play off you. So that's one of the things why we're not big cutters on the second level, is we feel like we're good enough athletes where we can get our hands on the guy, and then wherever he wants to go, we'll take him there, and the back's going to make us right. We'd rather be engaged than have a 50-50 shot of making or missing your cut, and then the linebacker's just standing there waiting for the running back.
So
Watch the center on this one.
So when you get the jam front, so we were running the ball pretty well against these guys. I think we ran for 200-some yards, but we're trying to end the game. We're up by a few touchdowns. They get in the jam front. Not my studies, but people's studies have shown that outside zone and inside zone to the empty side, one back, are pretty successful runs against jam front, bear front, whatever you guys want to call it. It's not the perfect technique, but you just do an A-B on the backside. So these two are man. They're reaching here. They're A-B, and so this guard's trying to overtake the nose. This tackle's trying to overtake him, and the center's trying to get on this linebacker. It wasn't the prettiest technique, but we had a good result here. Kevin does a great job. Reaches the guy. JC's on the angle. Gets a piece of him, jays him out. So he doesn't have the right thing, but he gets just enough of him. Doesn't get called for holding. Everybody reaches their gap. They have a good slant going the wrong way, and you're out the front door. And then you get receivers, don't like to block, but they just tell the running back where to go. Up top. You can tell it's the end of the game. Our backside receivers might not like to block too much, but when it breaks, they'll be the first ones down there to celebrate. Also, if you're a lineman, don't try and jump over anybody here. The guy's on the ground. We're still linemen over here.
questions.
Yeah. Yeah, if you guys have any more questions, we have about 5 minutes left. So anything you guys want to, even if it's not inside or outside zone, if you have a question you're thinking about or something cool.
A lot of it's film study and kind of understanding what type of defense you're going to get. Sometimes you have to understand what we're going to the game trying to call it. So sometimes you get it where you're going Bob, you've got free safety down to that side. You got to think: are we going to run into the free safety? Are we going to redeclare that, or are we going to run away from it? Are we going to flip the play and go the opposite way? So that kind of rotates throughout the week. So you got to talk and say, all right, how are we going to call that? Sometimes you'll get it. The Seahawks did a lot of it, where they'll insert the safety in between the backers. How are we going to handle that? So a lot of that just kind of seeing kind of what the flavor of that defense you're going to be playing this week is, and then going with it. And you kind of get in a rhythm of understanding the rules each week. You figure out kind of how you want to call it, and then a lot of it is talking to the quarterback to make sure you guys are on the same page of, if I see just the linebackers bossed over, I know a safety's coming down, so I'm gonna redeclare it, even though that safety's 12 yards deep still. I know eventually he's gonna show. So you just got to get on the same page with the rest of the guys to understand, like, this is what it's gonna get to. They might not show it right away, but this is how we're gonna call it, and then we'll fall into it the right way.
You guys run gas schemes like power. For you as a player, is there very much carryover in your line on your combination of inside zone and what you do on the front side? Think of it in those terms?
I think it's slightly different, but similar characteristics in the sense where your second step's your power set. So if I'm playing guard and we're deucing, you're playing tackle just for fun, and we're deucing back to this guy, I'm still going to take that 6-inch step. This step is going through his crotch, and I'm using my shoulder or my hands depending on how he's playing. So it's very similar to like a backside B block, the front side of power. If we're running duo, which is, I'm going to use my hands a little bit more because our backer is right here. And there's different things like zone, you can keep your feet moving. So if I'm B blocking, boom, 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 I can still cross over. If I'm running gap scheme, I'm probably going to keep a high leg. You know what I mean? I'm going to be here, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be here. Give me a chance to open up if someone runs through the gap. So there is carryover. And I think a huge thing is how quickly can you get that second step ground? How much force can you put it in with your whole foot in the ground? Yeah.
Yeah. So again, you kind of see it on film a few times. So you want to take that step, and your first thought is, I'll be the tackle, you be the guard.
Okay.
So you kind of know, again, you want to read the defense as every offensive lineman. So you see all of a sudden your linebacker that you guys are double teaming to is plussed over. You know that guard's got to go. That guard's going to be giving me very little, if anything. So now you've got two real choices. You can either cut them. If you think you're fast enough, you're usually not, to reach them. Then the next option is the back pad. So if I see that linebacker, now all of a sudden I know, all right, I've got to do this myself. You take that step. If this guy's a slower guy, and you can then get on your aiming point and get him, great. Usually when you're facing a penetrator, and that guy's up the field right in the guard's hip pocket and playing there, that's when you're going to let that backhand, that's why we call it the back pad, you're going to grab them and just spin them. I mean, it's a hold, but they're not going to call it if you do it right away. If you try to run, if you get stuck in the middle and try to run this guy down the line, and then as the back's coming to you, you grab him and throw him away from you, they're going to call it every time. But if immediately you know you're out leveraged, the guy's there, and you use his forward momentum to accelerate him up the field and not down the line, that's where the guy's going to make the tackle, is flat down the line. So if you use that momentum to accelerate him straight up the field, and then you keep coming around him, that you're going to be now in between him and you're going to be in between your man and the ball carrier, but you're going to get there the opposite way you usually would.
Thank you.
Yep.
What do you do with your left hand on that?
So I'm coming, I'm usually just trying to, again, we're not mincing words, you're holding the guy. I mean, you're here, you've got your hand where you want him, right in his chest, and then this hand's going to be the one that accelerates you around it. And all you're doing is just slingshotting him. Other people call it the slingshot. You're just slinging him up the field, and then all of a sudden, if he's playing 3 yards up the field, the back's past him. You just can't let him run flat down the line of scrimmage. So if you get him to run up the field instead of flat down the line of scrimmage, usually you're safe. And then, you just got to hope the ref didn't look down the line of scrimmage. But they've tried to crack down on it, but they're still struggling because the refs are looking down the line as they go. So if you make it instantaneous, they're not going to get their eyes to you by that time. The only time you're going to get it is when you wait too long, you realize, oh crap, this guy's going to make the tackle, I'm going to try a back pad, and then you just hold the guy and throw him out of the hole.
Another thought on that is you can try and man block the backside. So you can have the guard and the tackle on the backside either man block, so you stay on the 3 technique so you're not having to reach him, and you have a fullback or a tight end or a wing inserting up the middle, different variations, or you can cut this 3 tech. I don't know if you guys can do that where you're playing. But in the NFL, you can cut the guy with the fullback. So the 3 technique, you're leaving him. You're getting up to the linebacker. Fullback's coming in and slicing the guys down a little bit.
Guys,